Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. I want you to do me a quick favor. Just mentally transport yourself back in time. We're stepping way out of our modern comfort zones and traveling back not just a few centuries, but tens of thousands of years. You're standing in this terrifyingly dangerous, totally untamed prehistoric landscape. The air is freezing, the shadows are deep, and humanity, well, we're barely a footprint on the Earth. Today, we're going to figure out exactly how our ancestors survived some truly horrific, life-threatening injuries long before the very first doctor, pharmacy, or hospital ever existed. So picture this absolute nightmare scenario. You're wading through a freezing, fast-moving river, right? The icy water is rushing aggressively past your waist, and suddenly, your foot slips on a slick stone. You go down hard. A razor-sharp rock hidden underwater slices your leg right down to the bone. The pain is just blinding. You somehow drag yourself to the muddy bank, bleeding heavily. And then, the stark reality really sets in. You are completely isolated. The nearest hospital, the closest sterile bandage, or a simple shot of painkiller is tens of thousands of years in the future. So in that moment of absolute panic, how do you actually survive? How did early humans face these catastrophic life-or-death moments without a single shred of modern medicine?
Well, the harsh reality is that the prehistoric world was just a relentless, brutal struggle for survival against nature. Life back then was, quite frankly, incredibly perilous. We're talking extreme dangers lurking at literally every turn, waiting in the brush or beneath the water. And without any modern medical knowledge, no antibiotics to fight off microscopic killers, no sterile stitches for gaping wounds, no painkillers, a simple mistake could so easily be a death sentence. There were absolutely zero safety nets for the fragile human body out there in the wilderness.
First up, let's look at the dangerous prehistoric world and the sheer variety of everyday hazards they faced. I mean, our ancestors were constantly suffering these severe, life-altering injuries just trying to get their next meal. Imagine the physical toll of hunting massive prehistoric prey with nothing but wooden spears, or the massive risks of scaling jagged terrain just to find a safe cave for the night. Even the quote-unquote quiet moments were super dangerous. Just sitting down to make sharp stone tools carried a huge risk. One slip of a striking stone and boom, you could slice a tendon and render your hand completely useless forever. Add in fighting off apex predators, crossing those rapid rivers, and surviving freezing environments, the immediate physical dangers were immense. And that's before you even factor in the looming threats of infection, disease, or predators striking when you are most vulnerable. And that brings us to uncovering the fossil evidence and how we actually know all this today. You might be wondering how scientists can possibly know so much about ancient injuries. Well, ancient skeletons tell this remarkable, undeniable story of survival. By excavating and examining archaeological finds from all over the globe, researchers can clearly see distinct traumatic markers on ancient remains. But here's the really cool part. It's not just about finding broken bones, it's about finding healed bones. When experts look closely at a fossilized femur or a skull, they can actually find unmistakable physical evidence that a horrific fracture or a crushing blow knitted itself back together, which completely proves that the person survived the catastrophic event and lived for years afterward. But we do have to be careful to separate the hard scientific evidence from informed hypothesis. We know for an absolute fact that bones healed and that injured folks got years of physical care. That proof is locked right there in the fossil record for sure. But because soft organic materials like plants, flesh, and wood break down over millennia, researchers kind of have to play detective. They use modern botanical studies and look at isolated indigenous tribes to hypothesize exactly which specific plants, roots, and tree barks early humans actually used to manage pain and control infections. Which leads us to nature's first aid kit and how they healed with the earth. When disaster inevitably struck and someone was bleeding out, early humans had exactly one place to turn: the dirt right under their feet. If you had a severe, profusely bleeding wound, you had to improvise, using whatever the forest floor provided. To stop rapid blood loss, they would frantically pack wounds with highly absorbent natural materials. Imagine pressing damp moss, broad leaves, heavy clay, or even tightly woven spider webs right into a massive cut, and then binding it all up with animal skins to keep the pressure on. Crazy, right? For a violently broken bone, the goal was all about stabilization. They engineered these ingenious, rigid splints out of wooden branches, aligned the shattered limb, packed it with natural supports, and tied it down firmly with thick vines or leather straps. Total immobilization so the body could just naturally knit the bone back together.
Next up is fire and the ancient pharmacy, basically the multi-tool of medicine.
Because you see, these desperate, natural first aid kits eventually evolved way beyond just grabbing random leaves off the ground. Over countless generations, they developed a really complex ancient pharmacy. Think about the intense generational knowledge it took to figure out which roots were deeply medicinal and which were instantly poisonous. Early humans experimented meticulously. They passed down hard-won botanical secrets through spoken word over thousands of years, harvesting specific medicinal plants, stripping healing tree bark, gathering wild herbs, and digging up potent roots. By unlocking the chemical secrets of the wilderness, they found natural ways to reduce agonizing pain, bring down dangerous swelling, and actively fight off the deadly bacterial infections that would otherwise turn a tiny scratch into a slow, agonizing death.
But the ultimate game changer? Humanity's mastery of fire. Fire wasn't just for staying warm. It became the ultimate medical multi-tool. Harnessing flames meant they could boil water, transforming a stagnant puddle into a safe way to flush dirt out of a deep wound. It meant they could essentially sterilize their primitive stone and bone tools by running them through intense heat. Plus, fire was absolutely essential for preparing those medicinal plants, releasing the active pain-relieving chemical compounds using heat. Oh, and it produced charcoal, which has incredible natural purifying and toxin-absorbing properties. Fire literally let them actively manipulate nature to survive the unthinkable.
Now let's talk about the power of community care and surviving together.
What's really fascinating here is how the fossil record utterly destroys a major pop culture myth. We often picture early humans as ruthlessly pragmatic, right? Like they were driven entirely by the brutal logic of survival of the fittest and would immediately abandon anyone who was weak, sick, or severely injured to save the rest of the group. But the archaeological evidence tells a profoundly beautiful, totally different story. Discoveries repeatedly prove that people survived incredibly debilitating, paralyzing injuries for months or even years. Think about it. A prehistoric hunter with a completely shattered femur cannot hunt, cannot forage, and cannot walk to keep up with a migrating tribe. The only way they survived is because others deliberately chose to carry them, feed them, and tirelessly care for them during their darkest days.
Cooperation and deep, abiding compassion were just as incredibly vital to our evolutionary survival as the discovery of fire or the invention of the spear. Carrying an injured tribe member for months meant slowing down. It meant consuming precious resources and putting the healthy folks at much greater risk. Yet they did it anyway. This profoundly shows that ancient communities cared deeply for their people. Human compassion wasn't some luxury born out of modern civilization. It was an absolutely vital evolutionary adaptation. We didn't just survive by fighting the wilderness. We survived because we fiercely protected our most vulnerable.
Which brings us to ancient medicine versus modern, and those echoes of the past.
It is absolutely mind-blowing to compare these rugged, desperate ancient survival techniques with the sleek, sophisticated emergency first aid we rely on today. I mean, sure, the materials have evolved light years, from damp forest moss to sterile gauze, and from wooden branches to lightweight fiberglass casts, but the underlying medical logic, it remains incredibly, surprisingly similar. Today's paramedics are essentially applying the exact same core principles our ancestors figured out through sheer, desperate trial and error. Whether it's tens of thousands of years ago or today in an ER, the fundamental goals are identical. Apply firm pressure to absorb blood, completely immobilize broken bones, and use complex chemical compounds derived from nature to manage unbearable pain.
Ultimately, our ancestors didn't conquer the prehistoric world simply because they were physically imposing or had the sharpest spears. They survived the absolute brutality of nature because they were incredible, observant problem solvers. They brilliantly adapted, fearlessly experimented with the world around them to unlock ancient medicine, and above all, they compassionately protected each other when disaster struck.
So just imagine for a second, surviving a violently shattered bone or a deep, infected cut tens of thousands of years before the very first hospital ever existed. Imagine the terrifying reality of fighting for your life in a brutal wilderness, armed with nothing but plants and the compassion of your tribe. Next time you effortlessly open a sterile little bandage for a paper cut, take a moment to deeply appreciate the incredible, perilous journey our ancestors took to figure out exactly how to keep each other alive.